Hey there, this is Joey, back again with another marvelous video. Curtis Metcalf, who worked for the wealthiest industrialist in his native land, Dakota, used his brilliance to become the technologically advanced superhero called Hardware. The transition of Hardware's ruthlessly aggressive approach in the pursuit of his goals to a comparatively moderate and humane one proved Hardware to be one of Milestone's most self-reflective heroes. Curtis' life took a heavily twisted turn when he discovered his master as the epitome of corruption, in contrast to his belief of him being a humanitarian. In this video, we will explore how Curtis, who had been supplied with resources by his boss to expand his rogue operations, very efficiently obliterated them and ironically pulled down his criminal empire. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Curtis Metcalf, aka Hardware origin. Curtis's rising animosity with his longtime benefactor, Edwin Alva. Curtis Metcalf was born in an extremely impoverished locality in Dakota. His father was a poor cop but took pride in assuring the security of the common people. While growing up, Curtis completely baffled his parents. When his parents tried to influence Curtis' interests in sports activities like basketball, Curtis appeared curious to explore how the ball was manufactured instead of playing with it like a normal child. Curtis's astonishing brilliance at the young age of 12 years attracted the attention of the corrupted leader of Alva Technologies. Curtis was soon enrolled in one of the country's finest private schools under Alva's sponsorship. After completing high school, Curtis received his first college degree at the age of 15. By then, Alva had become a critical part of Curtis's life, who, unaware of Alva's true nature, admired him even more than his father. Alva offered to financially help Curtis with his following 6 degrees in return for Curtis's consent to work for him later. Soon enough, Alva provided Curtis with a private lab along with a large number of lab assistants. After giving an unrestricted budget for conducting experiments to Curtis' heart's content, Alva started earning in abundance through his inventions. After many years, when Curtis approached Alva to obtain his deserved share of income from his creations, he was greatly dismayed at Alva's rude behavior towards him. To Curtis' horror, Alva demeaned him to be just an insignificant member of his organization who would not be given any share of profits from his inventions. Curtis was immensely hurt by Alva's harsh revelation by not considering Curtis as a family member or even a respected employee. When Curtis sought to discontinue his job, he discovered that his contract prohibited him from working at any other company. Curtis even found the agreement to give ownership of Curtis' future inventions to Alva. In an attempt to find anything that he could use to his advantage against Alva, Curtis started scrutinizing Alva's historical records in secrecy. Soon enough, Curtis gained knowledge of Alva's hidden criminal activities. He learned of Alva's imprisonment, involvement in drug smuggling, and illegal weaponry trading. In the revelation of Alva's unscrupulous and dishonest acts, his presence of being a compassionate human being got unveiled to Curtis. After covertly emailing pieces of evidence of Alva's wrongdoings to numerous law enforcement departments and some news media organizations, Curtis eagerly awaited for Alva to get exposed. But to Curtis' disappointment, there were no responses to his emails, and nothing unfavorable happened to Alva. Upon realizing Alva's substantial power to subdue law and order, Curtis decided to take the matter into his own hands. How an ordinary Curtis became the superhero Hardware. Soon afterwards, Curtis designed an ultra-modern protective metal armored suit for himself, made up of 2 distinctive coatings of metallic alloys in the underground laboratory of Alva Enterprise, retitling himself as Hardware. The armor contained a formidable arsenal of weaponry with an impact-resistant pitch-black colored base layer, magnifying Curtis' strength to great heights and bridging the gap between Kurt and his mighty enemies. The suit's secondary layer was made up of nanotechnology, charged by eminently efficient batteries reserved inside its shoulder pads. Shortly, Curtis embarked on his mission of destroying Alva. After ruthlessly killing Alva's gang of thugs and security guards, Hardware left Alva's storehouses filled with illegal commodities and narcotic substances in a completely dilapidated condition. In no time, Hardware rose to the position of being his prime nemesis. Curtis's Hardware identity was eventually found out by his love interest, Baraki Young. She was appalled at Hardware's merciless measures and campaigns against Alva and rebuked him for being disgraceful. But afterwards, Curtis helped Baraki when she was harassed by one of her superiors in her workplace. Although Baraki wanted to propel the relationship to the next level, Hardware insisted on keeping their bond platonic. But Baraki's disgusted reaction to Hardware's brutal approach to crime fighting eventually made him question the nobility of his violent actions, which he soon deducted as shameful. Upon such a realization, Hardware began focusing his technologies on productive usage instead of destruction. He started protecting the residents of Dakota by fighting the evil Death Wish alongside battling Alva. After a while, Augustus Freeman, an alien who had been helplessly stranded on Earth since the 1800s, contacted Hardware. Considering Earth's technology to have become advanced enough to be able to repair the life pod inside his intergalactic communicator, the alien sought Hardware's help. Despite the fact that Curtis was not successful in fixing the life pod, he refurbished the inertia winder, which was the airbag of the alien spaceship, alongside other multiple technological equipments of the pod. Curtis even obtained and seized numerous designs from the internal sector of the life pod for his personal requirements. Hardware locked horns with the undercover government agent, Harm. Edward Nick Pugliese was part of a government agency that fought organized crimes in America. Upon noticing the country's crime bosses appointing individuals with superpowers as their bodyguards, the agency upgraded Nick into the violent leg breaker under the alias Harm. Soon, Nick got hired by Don Cornelius for his services when Holocaust severely attacked him and his son. After retaliating against some assassination attempts, Harm earned the trust of Cornelius. Afterwards, Harm got engaged in combat with the armored vigilante Hardware, who also intended to pull Cornelius down. In the battle, Hardware intercepted one of the private jets owned by Cornelius used for drug trafficking. The jet touched down in front of Dakota Police Headquarters under Hardware's influence. Realizing the police had enough evidence to arrest him, Cornelius commanded his mansion to be vacated, but Hardware somehow managed to reach his estate. In order to maintain the facade of being Cornelius's bodyguard and also to magnify his stature as the man who killed the formidable Hardware, Harm continued battling Hardware. An extremely exhausting brawl occurred between the two, as Hardware proved stronger beyond Harm's imagination. In the middle of the fight, when Harm and Hardware were teleported to Headmaster via transit and asked to align forces with the Star Chamber to conquer the Shadow Cabinet, both declined the offer. Hardware, a league of their own. Hardware saved millions as a member of the Shadow Cabinet. The Dakotaverse was a universe majorly based around the Dakota City, in which the characters from the Milestone Media were set. One of the most dominant characters in Milestone Media's Dakotaverse was the exceptionally powerful Dharma, who led the Shadow Cabinet superhero team. At the secret headquarters of the Shadow Cabinet, called the Shadow Spire, Dharma assembled his team and informed them of their new mission. Somehow, their means to accomplish the goal of protecting humanity against terrors have been arguably unethical. After a while, a veteran member of the Shadow Cabinet, called the Headmaster's motives, became crooked as he sought to rule over the weaker race of humans. Headmaster then formed a new team called the Star Chamber, with other cabinet operatives owning similar mindsets of global domination. But as the Star Chamber started getting overpowered by the Shadow Cabinet, they secretly copied the records of the metahumans based in Dakota City from Shadow Cabinet's database. Headmaster then convinced numerous metahumans that Dharma had become power-thirsty and aimed to achieve a highly dangerous weapon in his endeavor to establish his reign on the world. After successfully brainwashing them, Headmaster coaxed the superhumans to join his team in opposing Dharma's ill intentions. After recruiting several metahumans in their team by appealing to their moral perspectives, Headmaster also tried to persuade Hardware, but upon Hardware's refusal to join the Star Chamber, Headmaster attempted to kidnap and convince him. Upon reaching Hardware's location through teleportation, Transit interrupted Hardware's battle with Harm. After abruptly getting transported to Headmaster by Transit, Hardware was forced to work with the Star Chamber. Once, when Hardware tried to escape, Transit transferred him to an alternate dimension. Hardware used his plasma whip to get through Transit's still open cross-dimensional portal and return to his original timeline. And when Transit attempted to cut off Hardware's whip and prevent his return to his home dimension, she fell unconscious in the process due to the adverse reaction of her powers to Hardware's plasma whip. After successfully returning to his timeline, Hardware was employed by Iron Butterfly in the Shadow Cabinet. Soon afterward, a ruthless battle ensued between the Shadow Cabinet led by Dharma and the Star Chamber, led by Headmaster. As Headmaster had become rogue, he sought to obtain the incredibly powerful and dangerous mutagen called Quantum Juice. In an attempt to prevent the Q Juice from getting into the hands of their rival Shadow Cabinet, the Star Chamber embarked on the task of stealing it. Both the teams teleported to the Vault in an American casino where the Wicked System organization had stored the only known reservoir of the juice. In the clash between both the forces to snatch the juice, Hardware overwhelmed the Star Chamber members, Harm and Ash. Ultimately, the Shadow Cabinet got hold of the juice, defeating the Star Chamber. After many days subsequent to their defeat, the Star Chamber acquired a specific radioactive material in Israel which was capable of producing the Q-juice with the help of a superconductor collider located in China. Upon teleporting to the location of the collider, the final showdown between both forces took place. The launch of a missile hindered the fight between the rival troops. The rocket was revealed to be projected by the Star Chamber, which had loaded it with the mutagen. The inventor of the Q-juice, Dr. Nemo, ammo, soon seized and detonated the missile's remote control. Hardware bombarded the missile and got away with the juice inside of it just right before it blew up. After averting the death of countless people, Hardware was sent back to Cornelius' estate along with Harm. The Star Chamber was later handed over to the local authorities after their submission to the Shadow Cabinet. Hardware ended hostilities with former rival Edwin Alva. After the end of the war, when Hardware and Harm got transported back to Cornelius' mansion, they found the place in a pathetic condition. The government authorities had raided the mansion to capture Cornelius, but he managed to escape. Later at dinner, Hardware and Harm ended their hostilities on realizing both of their intentions to be the same. Harm's agency then informed him that Cornelius' abandoned empire was being targeted by his rival crime lords, as many of Cornelius' subordinates had been imprisoned. Harm passed on the information to Hardware, and they teamed up against their mutual foe, Cornelius. They traveled to Cornelius' home in Italy, as Harm doubted Cornelius to be hiding there. The duo staged a combat where Harm acted to fight against Hardware in order to paint a false impression of being loyal to Cornelius. Harm manipulated Cornelius into believing his previous abrupt disappearance was his strategy to ambush Hardware. Gradually, Cornelius employed Harm to run the Dakota Empire as his temporary substitute. Hardware and Harm then struck a deal with one another. In return for Harm's non-interference with Cornelius' criminal activities, which Harm promised to demolish confidently, Hardware demanded internal information from Harm to dismantle Cornelius' rival criminal masterminds. Cornelius was a member of the League of Dakota's most terrifying crime bosses, known as the Coalition, and Harm's status of being Cornelius' proxy earned him a position in the Coalition too. Soon, Harm gained knowledge of the interior workings of Dakota's underworld. As the bond between Hardware and Harm grew stronger, Hardware revealed his Curtis Metcalf identity and rivalry with one member of the Coalition named Edwin Alva to him. Soon after that, Edwin Alva anyhow discovered Curtis's reality of being a superhero vigilante Hardware and attempted to kill him in agony. But after reaching Hardware's secret laboratory, Alva's rage got diminished upon realizing Curtis's courage to take a stand and seeing his high intelligence. Surprisingly, Alva then offered to recruit Curtis as his second in command. In fact, he agreed to stop his criminal operations in exchange for Hardware's help to safeguard him. Hoping to entirely eliminate Alva's criminal ventures, Hardware accepted his proposal. With Alva's complete support, Curtis revamped his Hardware armor into a much stronger version. Milestone Forever. Transit's redemption upon teaming up with Hardware in saving the Milestone universe. Fred Benson was a mail carrier in Dakota. He got the ability to crack open interdimensional portals to an alternate dimension of Metropolis in his sleep as a consequence of Dakota's Big Bang incident. Every time he fell asleep in the Dakota world, he used to wake up in the Metropolis one, living in both worlds. Fred approached both Alva Technologies in Dakota and Rainforest Technologies in Metropolis to cure himself, but the organization's owners conducted several experiments on him to extract his powers. Fred underwent an emotional breakdown and got transformed into the Wicked Rift. As Transient was arrested by an elite Dakota police unit called Shred during the conflict between Harm and Hardware, she was dispatched to an undersea prison for metahuman criminals known as the Davy Jones Locker. In the lockup, she highly regretted her assistance to the Star Chamber and yearned to get a second chance and to get rid of her confinement. One day, Transient was suddenly visited by Hardware, who offered her another opportunity to lead her life exempt from crime. He told her that a compelling evil entity named Rift was wreaking havoc in their universe alongside another alternate one of the fictional city of Metropolis. Hardware notified Transit of his employer, industrialist Edwin Alva's intention of an extraterrestrial juncture, hoping to communicate with Alva's Metropolis counterpart, Hazard. To acquire Hazard's help in building a rift trap, Hardware wanted Transit to transform Alva's intersection into an interdimensional pocket large enough for Hardware and his counterpart Steel to construct the trap. Hardware ensured Transit of her earliest release from prison in return for her help. Transit agreed to aid them and went to the head office of Alva Technologies in Dakota. Over there, Transit was attached to devices that would magnify her powers to create an interdimensional pocket. In spite of the severely agonizing experience, Transit managed to create the pocket corresponding to which Hardware and Steel started building the rift trap immediately. Just as Hardware and Steel were almost done with their objective, Rift merged the Dakota and Metropolis Earths, breaking the cross-dimensional pocket. Consequently, the rift trap got submerged under seawater, and Transit was knocked out as a result. Icon and Superman showed up just in time to shift the trap to a safe location, while the rest of the Dakota and Metropolis heroes diverted Rift's attention. But as soon as Rift sensed their energy, he released a high burst of energy to destroy the weapon. But it somehow survived and got transferred to an alternate region of space called hyperspace. Icon, Superman, and Transit, who were in close vicinity of the trap, got tossed into the hyperspace as well. well. Initially, Transit got isolated from the heroes due to the swirl of energy fields in the alternate space, but soon was rescued by Hardware and teleported back to the merged Earth. Then, Steel redesigned Hardware's energy generator beacon, and Transit transmitted it to the hyperspace, where the trapped Superman and Icon detected it with their enhanced consciousness. Through Transit's interspatial gateway, Superman and Icon returned to the merged Earth, along with the Rift Trap. On Earth, as the heroes kept the Rift busy fighting them, the Rift Trap activated by Icon and Superman drained the villain Rift of all of its powers and turned him back to his mortal form of Fred Benton. The amalgamated Dakota and Metropolis Earths got converted back to their individual universes, and all the damage caused was also reversed. Afterwards, it was exposed that Dharma was actually behind the Big Bang event in an attempt to create substantially powerful beings capable enough to retaliate against a forthcoming menace he had foreseen. As Hardware and Static failed to satisfy his expectations, Dharma attempted to awaken and utilize the Cosmic Rift's extraordinary powers. But upon Rift's arrival, as the monster demolished everything on its way and was on the verge of destroying both worlds, it was realized that Dharma's very own attempts to stop the upcoming apocalypse were the cause of the very catastrophe. After a lot of chaos, Dharma finally absorbed the Rift's powers and saved millions of endangered lives. Transit very cleverly escaped to avoid police detection, and Hardware let her go on account of their earlier deal. Later, when a spy named Sanction aimed to kill Hardware to reach Alva and bring him to justice, Transit returned Hardware's favor by justifying Hardware's actions to Sanction. After Transit convinced Sanction that Hardware was working to demolish Alva's unlawful activities discreetly, Sanction decided to spare Hardware's life. Hardware, the hard way. Hardware's dormancy due to Arcana's virus. Arcana was an influential sorceress. She captured the wealthy industrialist Garrett Thornton Boyle during the 7th annual symposium on technological advancements. At that time, inventor Curtis Metcalf, who was also an attendee, immediately put up his superhero guise of Hardware after leaving the location of the conference. But as Hardware returned in his alias and tried to get inside the symposium, he was resisted by 3 avatars invoked by Arcana. Although Hardware overwhelmed them, Arcana attempted to run away with Bull in the meantime. When Hardware was about to go after Arcana, one of his fellow comrades, called Deacon Stewart, another attendee of the event, called him up for help. As Hardware saved Deacon from Arcana's Panthers, Arcana fled the spot unscathed with the captive Bull. After returning to her home through her crystal ball, Arcana realized that Hardware was trying to locate her, so Arcana gave the responsibility of Bull and her other victims to Helga and set forth to tackle Hardware. On discovering Hardware on a subway train to Soho, she crashed the train off the track. After gaining Hardware's attention, she led him to chase her through the tunnels of New York to catch her. Deacon Stewart, who observed their chase, tried to figure out Arcana's source of power and intended to block them from using his computer. Upon understanding Deacon's intentions, Arcana released a pair of flying monkeys to abduct and hinder him. After causing devastation through the streets of Soho, Arcana lured Hardware to her residence, where both of them engaged in a clash, with Arcana ending up teleporting away. Hardware then found Deacon trapped inside a cage by Arcana's flying monkeys at her dwelling place. After freeing Deacon, Hardware rescued the kidnapped Bull and the other businessmen. Just when Hardware was relieved to get done with Arcana's troubles, he met with the horror of his life. He figured out that during his chase with Arcana through the subway tunnels in New York City, Arcana very cunningly contaminated the onboard computer of Hardware's vigilante costume with a hazardous computer virus. The virus stayed inside the onboard computer of Hardware's armor for a long time, keeping him dormant. At a future date, it left his computer and built a physical form for itself using Hardware's shell-forged technology. The virus named its physical body Hephaestus. Despite Hephaestus's efforts to kill Hardware, it was destroyed by Hardware with the help of the antidote manufactured by his ally, Cheryl Saltz. How Hardware conquered the Trafficmen. An explosion of the mutagenic gas called quantum vapor, manufactured by Alva Industries, resulted in the mass mutations of multitudes of people at the Dakota docks. The Bang Babies were individuals who turned into metahumans whose powers were activated by the mutagenic gas. After a while, a mysterious group of men appeared called the Trafficmen. Equipped with energy staves, they preyed on the Bang Babies and temporarily rendered their victims powerless. John Tower, who was sorely wounded in his battle against Holocaust, aspired to restore his health by absorbing the metahumans, and hence dispatched the Trafficmen to abduct them. The Trafficmen once captured Harm, misinterpreting him as one of the Bang Babies. With the company of other superheroes, Hardware located Tower's underground operation base with Iron Butterfly's help. Upon reaching Tower's hideout headquarters, the other superheroes subdued the Trafficmen, and Static rescued the captives, including Harm. Upon liberation, Tower's former prisoners knocked him down, who was helpless without his serum. The alien heroine Gloria Mundi then sucked up the souls of Tower and the Trafficmen. How powerful was hardware? Hardware's armor plate had high resilience to bullets and laser beams. It also generated a protective energy field, shielding hardware from fire and energy blasts. The paper-thin CPU attached to hardware's costume ensured proper working of his voice synthesizer, apart from keeping a check of any damage caused to him. Using the voice synthesizer, hardware altered his voice and changed his language, perplexing his enemies and eventually defeating them. The Omni Cannon attached to hardware's forearm housed a diversity of unique weapons, such as incapacitating air blasts, comprising of numerous cartridges or shells that impose various impacts on his rivals. Hardware used the Arcana non-nuclear explosive cartridge to rapture heavily secured enemy fortresses. Hardware used the stun shell to exert a blinding flash of light and ear-piercing ruckus to his enemies. The nano-acid cartridge facilitated hardware to counteract his armed rivals, as it contained a legion of nanorobots held moratorium, which, when unleashed, could be used to gobble up metals in close proximity. Hardware used his bolo steel ball to intertwine his enemies, and the cryonic shell to hold them in suspended animation. Using the neural net to discharge an electronic field and inflict tremendous pain on his opponents by adversely affecting their nervous systems. Hardware paralyzed his enemies. Hardware used the flatchet shell, capable of unleashing tons of needle-sharp darts, to knock out his opponents by shooting the darts coated with an anesthetic drug at his targets. Hardware could efficiently climb great heights with the help of his plasma whip, apart from using it like a highly versatile weapon. The shoulder-mounted plasma laser device of Hardware's armor suit could expand his target's temperature exceedingly, to the extent of vaporizing them in no time, making him a terrifying opponent. Hardware could hinder his opponent's moves by ejecting streams of varying liquids. The holographic projector of Hardware's battlesuit projected his innumerable number of replicas and baffled his rivals. Hence, Hardware's armored suit made him immensely strong and notably durable. An incredibly intellectual individual with expertise in scientific knowledge of various fields like metallurgy, computer science, and nanotechnology, Hardware proved to be a genius. Apart from being highly trained in martial arts and gymnastics, Hardware was also adept at fisticuffs. DC's Icon vs. Hardware #1 ongoing series. The recently released Milestone Returns comics by Reginald Hudlin and Greg Pak reintroduced the fan-popular characters Hardware and Icon, created by Milestone Media. The first installment of the Milestone comics, released in 2023, concentrated on Curtis Metcalf getting involved with the brilliant scientist Benjamin Banneker. The mysterious work of the scientist soon got disclosed as time traveling. After beginning to traverse the time stream, Hardware sought to rectify the mistakes he had committed in his past. After averting his father's dispersal from his life and handling his relationship with Edwin Alva in a better way, Hardware gave a fresh start to his life. But soon, Hardware drew the attention of Icon, who was thoroughly examining the changes in the time stream. It would be thrilling to watch these two superly powerful characters locking horns with one another and the consequences that follow, which might change the Dakotaverse forever. Icon vs. Hardware is definitely an enthralling start for Milestone's next great epic. Hardware appearances and other media. In the American animated superhero series Young Justice, Outsiders by Brendan Vietti and Greg Weisman, first released in 2019, Hardware appeared to be a part of the Justice League in the initial stage of his career. But in the view of the UN, Secretary General Lex Luthor's objections prevailing the Justice League's intrusion and attempts at extricating the trafficking rings of the metahumans, Hardware left the group. Afterwards, Hardware joined Batman alongside other Leaguers. In the 2000 to 2004 animated series Static Shock, Richard Foley was temporarily provided with the power of force fields and propulsion by an alleged victim of Dakota's Big Bang event named Ragtag. But upon discovering Ragtag controlling him, Richard overpowered him with his best friend Static's company and lost his powers in the process. Afterwards, as Richard developed the talent of inventing extraordinary machinery and successfully rescued his superhero friend Vigil Hawkins, aka Static, he decided to become a superhero. After designing a well-equipped and high-tech vigilante costume for himself, Richard attempted to retitle himself as Hardware. But as Static pointed out that the title Hardware was already in use by some other hero, Richard ultimately renamed himself Gear and became Static's partner in battling crime. Marvelous Verdict. The new comic book series of Hardware vs. Icon has intrigued the audience with a new modern storyline of the superhero Hardware and increased the expectation of the fans to witness more of his compelling abilities. Apart from being Milestone's tech hero, Curtis Metcalf, who actuated his vigilante journey with the motive of vengeance against his employer, gradually underwent a change of heart and vowed to continue his journey fighting for justice instead. Curtis's Hardware identity practically found its true essence upon awakening from his fuming stupor of revenge. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.